Welcome in, everyone. It's time to preview the Western Conference Finals in the MLS Cup playoffs between LAFC and the Houston Dynamo on Saturday in one of two games happening on Saturday. So let's break down the best bet for this game in the playoffs. Be sure to hit that like button while you're listening or watching. It's a big help in sharing this content with more people. Let's get into this preview between LAFC and Houston. LAFC were third in the Western Conference this year with 52 points. They scored 54 goals and they allowed 39. Houston were fourth in the conference, just behind them with 51 points, also scoring 51 goals and allowing 38. So those stats are very comparable. LAFC were 10-3-4 at home. They outscored their opponents 36-17, while Houston were just 3-5-9 on the road. So in the playoffs for LAFC, they beat Vancouver 5-2 at home and then 1-0 on the road in round one to advance to the conference semifinals, where they went on the road in Seattle and won 1-0. That snapped Seattle's 19-game home playoff winning streak. Bouanga had the winner in the first half in that game. He just keeps scoring. He now has 4 goals in the playoffs. He also has 37 goals in all competitions for LAFC this year. Seattle played without some stars to start the game, as Lodero was only subbed on in the second half. Then Ruidiaz came on later in the second half, but neither could make the difference. Seattle had 70% of the possession in that game. They let in shots 16-7, shots on target 8-2, and corners 10-2. But Maxime Crepeau made 7 saves, and the league's top scorer proved to be too much for Seattle. This will be the third time LAFC has made it to the conference finals. Over to the Houston side of things, and in the playoffs for them, they needed 3 games to get past RSL in round one. They won 2-1 at home. They drew 1-1 in Salt Lake before going on into PKs, and then they drew again at home in game 3, and again going to PKs, and this time they won, moving on to the semifinals as well. Off to the conference semifinals then, they defeated SKC at home with just one Franco Escobar goal in the 39th minute from a Hector Herrera corner kick. Herrera, like he has been for much of the season, was a key component for Houston. He had the most touches of anyone in that game. For SKC, Saloy had a chance to tie in the second half, but was saved by Steve Clark. And Houston also got sort of lucky blocking a shot on the goal line, which could have very easily been called a handball and possibly a red card, but neither was called, so they got away with that one. SKC had their chances in this game, but they couldn't finish any of those chances. Both teams had 4 shots on target. Houston led in the shots 15-12, and they had the bulk of the possession at 64%. The corner count was an even 4-4. This will be the eighth time that Houston has reached the conference final. That's 2 more than any other MLS team. If we look at the odds for this game, odds makers are certainly backing LAFC, the current champions, to get the win here. In regulation, LAFC are -163 favorites. A draw is +333. Houston Dynamo are big long shots at +375. To advance by any means, Houston is +225, while LAFC are -300. So if you wanted to bet, if you thought this game might end in a tie and go to extra time, you can bet just to advance or lift the trophy, depending on what your sportsbook offers in that market, which would be to win in regulation, to win in extra time, or to win in penalties. So you have a couple options there. They're also, the odds makers are split, at least at Bet365, which is where I'm looking right now, on whether this game will go over or under 2.5 goals. That both of those bets come in at -110. If we move over to the goal-scoring props market, if you're looking to bet on goal scorers in this game, leading the way in the odds to score in this game are a slew of LAFC players headlined by Golden Boot winner Denis Bouanga at even money, +100. He had 24 goals this season. He's also scored 10 goals in his past 6 games, scoring in each game. He's followed by teammate Carlos Vela at +137, who had 9 goals this season. Then Mario Gonzalez, Nathan Ordaz, and Stipe Biuke, all at +187. Those players had 1, 0, and 3 goals, respectively, in the regular season here. It's not till the 8th most favored player that a Houston player makes his name shown on the list, and it's Amin Bassi at +300. He led the Dynamo with 12 goals, so certainly if you feel Houston's going to get on the score sheet, he would certainly offer you some value in the scoring props market. Among the top 12 players, though, the only other Dynamo to make an appearance is Corey Baird. He comes in at +333. He had 9 goals this season. Hector Herrera, one of the best midfielders in the game right now, is third in team scoring with 5 goals this season. He's way down at 7-1 odds. Now, let's look at some stats and a best bet for this game. LAFC getting the home field in this match is huge. Houston, as we talked about just briefly earlier, they were not very good on the road this season. The record, like I said, was 3-5-9, and they were outscored 27-15. But it has to be noted that they have certainly improved in that regard in the later stages of the season. Since the Leagues Cup, Houston has played 7 road games. And in those 7 road games, they're 3-2-2. So even though they only have 3 wins, those 3 have all come recently. Now, one of those losses was in PKs in the playoffs recently. Now, one of those wins was in Miami when they won the US Open Cup final. Since Leagues Cup, Houston has been near perfect, though, overall. If you look at all their competitions, they're 11-4-2. They've scored in all but 2 of those 17 games as well, even though they're not known for being a high-scoring team. They've also kept 6 clean sheets in those 17 games, but only one of those has come in their past 7, and that was the last game. Prior to that 1-0 win against SKC last game, if you've been betting both teams to score in Houston games, you would have been 6-0 and also 10-1 in their last games. After some inconsistency for LAFC this season and a run of 4 games where they were winless and 4 games where they were shut out, LAFC does seem to be peaking right now at the right time. They ended the season with a 5-1 win, a 5-2 win, a 1-1 draw, and then going into the playoffs, they've won 5-2, 1-0, and 1-0. So they're now undefeated in 6 games, and they've outscored their opponents 17-6. Now, that is certainly impressive, but let's just look at some of these opponents that they've played. 3 of those games did come against Vancouver, and while the Whitecaps have been a good team, they're certainly not known for their defense. LAFC had 5 goals come in Game 1 when they played Vancouver in these playoffs. Now, a clean sheet versus Seattle in Seattle is also good, but Seattle is a team that struggles to score. That 1-0 win was one of 4 unders in the conference semifinals, as well as we just saw all games last round go under. LAFC have scored at home in 12 of 14 in all recent competitions, and they certainly have the most informed striker right now who can always be dangerous with Denis Bouanga not needing much to get on the score sheet. So while the odds might say that LAFC look like a strong play, also, we can't forget about some of the head-to-head results recently this season that saw Houston win both meetings with LAFC. First, they won 4-0 in Houston, and then a few days later, they won 1-0 in LA just days later. Now, that 1-0 result, though, is the only time in 13 all-time meetings between these teams that there's been fewer than 2 goals. Prior to that, if you've been betting both teams to score, when LA and Houston play, you had been 11-0 before entering this season. Now, the big names on offense will get all the headlines for LAFC here with Bouanga and Vea, but lately it's just Bouanga who's been getting the goals, so if Houston can find a way to contain him, perhaps they have a chance. In the regular season, though, these were actually 2 of the top defensive teams as well. Only 3 teams allowed fewer goals than Houston this season, and only 4, one of those being Houston, allowed less goals than LAFC. LAFC had the 6th lowest XGA. Houston had the 9th lowest XGA. Many would have picked LAFC to make it this far. Houston, though, they're one of the surprises of the season, and anything that happens here is still a great year for them, given they've made the playoffs, they've made the conference finals, and they won the US Open Cup. Houston will certainly have the higher possession numbers here with their dominant midfield, but where the goals come from is always a little bit of a question when you're dealing with Houston. Now, that's not the question in LAFC. They know they might just need 1 or 2 chances from Denis Bouanga to get this win, and these are the defending champs at home with the best player. So if I had to pick a team to win, I'd probably lean towards LAFC, but this could also be a close game and end in a draw, needing extra time or maybe PKs. It also should definitely be a tight game. I'm going to go under 2.5 for the best bet between LAFC and Houston on Saturday. So there's your MLS Cup Playoffs Western Conference Final prediction. Be sure to leave me your picks down there below in the comments. And whatever you're betting this weekend, good luck with all of your MLS picks.